Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to ThinkTech here on a given Monday afternoon for a series we're beginning today called Agritech in Hawaii.
That's right.
I'm Jay Fidell. My co-host is a lady at the far side, Liz Shue, from the Department of Agriculture. Thank you so much, Liz, for joining and for being part of this new venture of ours, Agritech in Hawaii.
I do this because I just want to help our farmers.
This is clear from everything you do.
Thank you.
You are a very virtuous person.
Thank you.
And our guest today is Jason Brand. He runs Kunia Country Farms, which is in, guess what, Kunia.
Very creative name.
And the title of our show is Aqua-Ponics Comes to Kunia. So we're going to try to make Kunia really famous. And let's take a quick shot of what we have on the table. There it is. We got 3 heads of lettuce. What is that?
We have Manoa lettuce,
Manoa lettuce,
rock-side lettuce, and endive.
Okay, those are your 3 lettuce kinds of products. All right. Okay, from Kunia Country Farms. Okay, so let's get to know who's who here. Jason, who are you?
Hello, audience. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Brand. I moved to Hawaii about 7 years ago. My background originally, before I came to the island, was in finance. And I was working in Japan, and my wife was working in New York, and we kept meeting in Hawaii. And finally, we said, let's have our family and move to Hawaii. And
Good idea.
Good move. Yeah, excellent.
so after surfing for a bit, she said I better start a job or get a job. And so we decided as a family and together with 2 other partners to help tackle Hawaii's food dependence problem and the high concentration of imported food coming to this island. And so to that end, we studied at various farms and online and using CTAR and the Department of Ag and developed our way ultimately into one of the largest aquaponics farms on this island.
Yes, a prominent aquaponic farm.
Thank you.
Yeah, a dedicated aquaponics farm. Yeah, no fooling around.
No fooling around. It's large scale. I think
How large is large scale?
we produce about 5,000 pounds of lettuce a week, and we are in the process of basically doubling our production. So the hope would be to be about 10,000 pounds a week.
That's when?
The plumbing is in, and 2 of the new grow beds or grow areas are already built. Well, that number 2 has to go to 20. So it takes us about 2 days to build 1 new system. So if we went 100% at just building, we'll be up and running, within the month. But
wow.
I think more practically, it'd be towards the end of the summer. Everything will be built out.
Okay, very good.
Are the 2 partners that you have local partners or offshore?
No, local partners. Everything about this farm is local. The goal of the farm really was we wanted to help food independence and have Hawaii have sustainable food. But when you go to the supermarket and you say this is locally grown, it tends to be twice the normal price. Maybe not twice the normal price, but locally grown tended to be more expensive, not cheaper. And so we decided, why is that? Let's research it, let's figure it out. And a lot of it has to do with economies of scale. So that's why we scaled the farm to be focused on 1 product as opposed to a diversified, I have carrots, I have beets, I have onions.
That's lettuce.
We just do lettuce and leafy greens. And you can see this is our form of diversity, right? Everything's lettuce, but I might change the variety of lettuce I grow. And in that way, we're better able to use economies of scale for our harvest process, our growing process, our pest management, our waste management, our refrigeration, which is our big energy cost with it, and really get economies of scale going. Our labor force then gets easier to train. They know exactly what they're doing. And we will continue with this product until we feel like we've maximized the market opportunity. Now within that, why did we choose lettuce? When we decided to help with food independence, we chose lettuce because lettuce is basically grown in California and flown into Hawaii in a refrigerated container, airport container. That's expensive. That's a high cost of shipping. So if I could use economies of scale and grow at the same price as California, then without really hurting any local farmers, right, but really just going after the imported California market, we can begin to move them out, use the cost of shipping as 1, profit for the farm to help it be economically sustainable, and 2, achieve the maximum goal, which is really to, when you say local, it actually means not only a high quality fresh product, but a cheaper product, right? Or one at least where you didn't have to pay shipping.
That's tremendous. You know,
Yeah.
it really pays to have been an investment banker. It helps you in the
Yeah.
thought process. Yeah.
Well, I joke, in the world of investment banking, you are trained not necessarily to help your competition, but if there's weakness, you go ahead and try to help the client out, but really at the expense of your competitive
The
firm.
guy with the weakness.
Yeah. In farming, it's the exact opposite. I've never met a nicer group of people in terms of if my tractor breaks, the neighbor farmers will come over with their equipment and employees.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to step through exactly how you started this up.
Yeah.
The reason I'd like to do that is as instructive to some people who might watch this to find out how to do it. You know, so you start. I don't know exactly when, but say it was no earlier than 7 years ago. And you have the idea, and you begin to execute on your plan. How did that go? What were the significant milestones in putting this together?
Sure. We started this farm a little over 3 years ago, is when we really got into it. And when we got into it, we got into what we will call 6 troughs. Now, a trough on our farm is 100 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 1 foot deep. Because we grow...
In the soil.
Not in the soil. So on our farm, we have no soil. We have, we tend to call our farming zero impact farming. So we don't use any soil. We have 120,000 gallons of water that recirculates throughout our system. We filled that up over 3 years ago, and that was the last time we added water. So we're soil neutral, water neutral, and we just received a grant to put solar panels on the farm, so soon we'll be power neutral. And that will make us basically able to grow a large amount of produce for the islands with no soil, no water, and no power use, right? Really helping the Aina and helping eventually our keiki grow up with all the resources the island still has.
Okay, but you got to put something in the system to make this happen. It doesn't happen by spontaneous combustion.
Right, so the right place to start is what is aquaponics, basically. Aquaponics is a science.
Did you know this 7 years ago?
I had no idea what aquaponics
Just
was.
checking.
I will say, prior to Wall Street, my passion was marine biology.
Ah, close. That's close.
Oh, yeah, close.
And I learned real quick I didn't want to have to beg for grant money. So I left the world of marine biology to go into the world of finance, hoping to return.
You made a smart
Yeah.
choice, yes.
So I'm returning to not necessarily my roots because it's not marine biology, but aquaponics is the marriage between fish and plants. So in simplified terms, the fish are living in fish tanks or living in the water, no different than if they were in a stream. And the farmer takes the water from the stream water, or from, in our case, the fish tank water. It flows through a variety of filters and goes into the plants. The plants use up all the nutrients that were put there by the fish, grow, basically filter in the water, and return perfectly clean water back to the fish in a continuous closed loop. So our only major import is fish food. Right, input is fish food. Now, we tend on our farm to focus mostly on tilapia. We've used tilapia and catfish on our farm. And soon we will probably move to basa and maybe even barramundi as we experiment into
Right,
different
right.
fish.
Okay, let me just itemize it. Catfish, you mentioned catfish.
Yeah.
Are you growing them now?
So we have a small subset of catfish. As we talk about problems and things that we've entered into, I'll tell you why we got away from catfish.
Tell me.
All right, so in the startup phase of the farm, you have a very low fish population because you're trying to build your fish population. You're buying them as fingerlings or little baby fish and growing them bigger.
But you only do that at the beginning.
Just at the beginning.
After that, it's sort of they spawn themselves.
So it depends on the fish. Tilapia will spawn themselves. Catfish generally need to be artificially inseminated. Not a hard process, but a process. And one my wife doesn't really love when I talk about artificial inseminated catfish. But anyway, we started with about 1,500 catfish fingerlings. And we had to supplement them in order to get enough nutrients to the lettuce at this early stage by adding fertilizer. And you had a special kind of fertilizer made for hydroponics and aquaponics. But that fertilizer has salt in it. Now, catfish is one of these fish varieties that don't have scales. Salt on a scaleless fish equals
Hurts.
death, yeah. So and it's unfortunate and you feel so bad, we killed 1,500 baby catfish
With a little
inadvertently.
salt.
Yeah, just because we didn't realize how they would react to the fertilizer. So we got out of catfish to tilapia as the startup phase, just because we had to start up and get.
But you
critical
could grow the catfish if you used a different kind of fertilizer that didn't have salt.
Well, now that we're up and running,
Yeah.
and we don't add fertilizer anymore,
Yes.
I could switch back to catfish
interesting.
or tabasa,
Okay.
which the restaurants want, which is a type of catfish, and things like that. But I guess our experience is still burned in my memory of seeing that.
Yeah, this is a
massive
good,
white-eye.
good lesson for everybody to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a farmer or a startup business in general, I hope we've gone through the big mistakes. We feel like we've made almost every mistake that you could as a new farmer, but
Right.
I'm sure there are many more. But we've seen a lot in the last 3 years. But that one was probably the most heart-wrenching with regard to the fish species. Recognizing that at the end we would have sold the catfish and they would be food on your plate anyway. But it just felt bad that
For the babies.
they were babies.
Yeah. Seems so unfair.
Yeah. But you show back up at the farm like, what happened? I just put them in the day before.
Now, what about basa?
Basa is a type of, so the restaurants here are educating the public about tilapia, right? So tilapia is probably the most popular, if not the second most popular farm-raised fish in America.
What's the first one?
Salmon would probably be the,
Oh, sure.
the first one.
There was a thing on, I think it was 60 Minutes or one of the programs on, maybe I saw it on PBS, about salmon and the great big argument now about salmon and farming of salmon.
There's
and so forth.
always argument about the salmon farming.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that argument actually translates over into Hawaii, because the same activist groups that oppose the salmon farming elsewhere come out here and they want to oppose open ocean aquaculture.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
lost on that. So yes, so tilapia is the most popular here, and although it has a bad rap from before, it is actually getting more accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would actually say we would be able to sell, there's enough demand now on island that we would be able to sell any tilapia that we can raise to a pound.
Yes.
To the restaurants.
To the restaurants,
How
a
about to
lot
the
of it are
food
cut
stores?
up and sold into Chinatown, some are used into fish cakes. So
I remember saw a report that Dr. Karatamaru wrote to us. We saw that we imported 800,000 pounds of tilapia 2 years ago, annually.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really a waste because we can do it here. Yeah.
It's much cheaper, so we have to improve our process, system design, everything to make the tilapia price more affordable as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just education.
So why aren't you, producing lots of tilapia right now and selling it?
The only constraint that we have is, as an aquaponics farmer, remember you're marrying fish to plants. So you can make money on the plants, and hopefully you can make money on the fish. If we went ahead full bore and just bought a lot of fish, or bred a lot of fish, but it takes about a year to get them up to enough poundage to provide enough fertilizer for the plants, we can be up and running very quick, right? At our farm, and again, these are lessons learned, around Hawaii, there's a tilapia disease called TRLO.
Say it again.
Tilapia rickets-like organism.
TRLO.
LO. It might have another name. The name's changed 3 or 4 times. But, it doesn't affect humans, but it affects tilapia.
They don't look so good.
And what happens to them is any major temperature change, so figure it's winter, their spleens erupt. Okay, so all of a sudden you'd wake up and you go to your farm, it was a colder day, and there's a lot of dead fish there. So about month 3, we experienced that of our farm. So we got rid of all the tilapia.
This is infectious.
You
You put them all in the same tank,
Yeah,
they're all going to get it.
Yeah, the Department of Health doesn't seem to mind it because it's not transferable,
Right.
according to them, to humans. So it's okay. But at our farm, we like to stay clean. There was an organism that was killing the fish. We didn't want to wake up a year from them and find out that we had something in our tanks and it ended up being bad to humans. Or it could have just taken down our fertilizer source, which was our fish. So we got rid of every tilapia on our farm, cleaned the entire system, and started fresh. And the University of Hawaii gave us a TRLO-free or a disease-free.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the other name could be FNO.
FNO is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more modern name of it.
Right, right.
Of the disease.
Of the disease.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
What does that stand for?
Sorry, that name I cannot pronounce. It's
F-and-O or
Francesla,
F-N-O?
Francisla, something like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think they
okay.
further defined what
Yeah.
the microorganism
Yeah.
was that was
Okay.
causing the disease. But we got rid of those, got disease-free fish to the farm. And so at this point, we only breed our own fish. So we don't let any new fish onto the farm because...
So no introduction of virus.
Correct.
So you want to reach that point because then you're kind of in a safe, protected world because you're not introducing anything foreign.
Correct. So we probably have about 20,000 pounds of fish on the farm right now.
Are they mature?
They range from smaller than your fingernail to really 3-pounders, probably about this big.
But you're going to hold on to them and use them to grow the lettuce for now.
So as we continue to grow lettuce, we have to grow more fish. Eventually, when we kind of hit the plateau of no more agricultural plant expansion, then we'll just grow the fish for food,
Right.
How will you know that?
Supply demand, the market's going to tell us.
No, but how you know that you don't need any more fish poop to grow the lettuce?
So basically, the plants are going to tell you, right? When I see that the plants are growing slower than normal, or not growing at all, or growing with some form of nutrient deficiency, I'll know I have a problem. In addition to that, we test our water 4 times a week.
And see all the
and see
elements in it.
What's in it, what's our pH, what's our ammonia, our nitrate, our nitrite. Once a month, we go after our micronutrients to figure out what metals are in the water, what else does, what's the magnesium, what's everything else that the lettuce would require.
You have staff on staff. You don't have to bring anybody in to do that.
For the
testing.
4 times a week stuff, we do ourselves.
Yeah.
For the micronutrients, we send to a lab. And then every so often, as part of our growing guidelines, we actually test our water quality for pathogens such as E. coli, salmonella. We take the lettuce in, grind it up, test that. And again, this is just to make sure that the product we have is food safe for the public.
Right.
So
That's
when do
very
you think you're going to reach nirvana here where you can sell the fish?
Well, we're going into summer, so summer is breeding season, right? So the water's getting hot again in our tanks of the tilapia. In fact, we got our first batch of babies for the new summer. I saw them this morning. So my guess is every week going forward now we'll probably have close to 1,000 new babies. So in 9 months we will have 3/4 pounders to 1-pounders from what was made today.
That's Jason Brand, Kunia Country Farms. We're talking about Agritech in Hawaii with Liz Shue, my co-host. And we've named this program Aquaponics Comes to Kunia. And what I really like about it is that you reflect the same characteristics that you ascribe to the other members of the aquaponics community, namely that you'll share what you're doing. In the thought of that helps build the industry.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be right back after this short break.
Excellent.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m.
That's Barramundi. We can't have it yet.
Oh, here you
so-
go. We're back.
Can't
We're
have it
live.
Yeah.
That's Jason Brand and Liz Shue. We're talking about Kunia Country Farms, which is an aquaponics farm, among other things. We'll talk about the other things too. We're talking about Aquaponics Comes to Kunia today on Agritech in Hawaii, a brand new series that Liz Shue and I are going to do. So the other 2 fish you mentioned, lest we forget, are the basa and the barramundi. I like barramundi, great name, an exotic name.
It's tasty too.
Yeah, very tasty fish.
So why not them? Are they not as popular as tilapia?
Well, I think from a restaurant standpoint, basa and barramundi will be much more popular. And in fact, if the water here was colder, you would probably move into trout and salmon as well. The issue with Basa and barramundi, and we'll have to check, is whether or not there are permitted import fish to Hawaii right now.
You mean to get them in the first place?
To get them in the first place.
Yeah, barramundi is not permitted, not allowed.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah, I know only Ron Wedenbach of Hawaii Fish Company. He has a permit from many years ago because his site is a quarry site surrounded by mountains, so the fish cannot escape to anywhere. Yeah.
Well, see, we'd be in the same boat in Kunia, which is absolutely landlocked, right?
Right. Yeah.
We would be, no way for the fish to actually get anywhere as well. Yeah. The barramundi is probably the most popular aquaponic fish in Australia. Right. It's an Australian fish. It's their version of tilapia, even though it's a different family. But it is one because we have a large tourism industry from Australia, and two, there's a lot of cachet to the name barramundi over tilapia. It's an exotic name, an exotic fish. And so I think there would be a lot of demand for chefs here. It's just going through the right red tape and hoops in order to be able to breed it on the farm.
Well, it strikes me, just hypothetically, just imagine, say 5 years from now, with the help of Liz Shue and the Department of Agriculture, your farm and other farms are successful in selling tilapia. Everybody loves it.
Yeah.
And we create a lot of tilapia, and it becomes a protein staple for the islands, which I think could really happen actually.
Yeah.
So then somebody says, tilapia for breakfast, tilapia for lunch. Can't we have another kind of aquaponics fish?
Exactly. Yes.
That's when you trot out the other two possibilities.
Yeah, and I
think three possibilities.
I think barramundi and basa would be the chefs here would be readily take them. I think they would love to use them.
Zippy's, they have barramundi on their menu. It's imported and it's a very popular dish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are. You have a business going. I mean, can we say it's profitable yet?
No, it's definitely profitable.
Well, good.
The reason why it took us a long time, and I should mention I have two partners in this business. One is Scott Woe from CS Woe, who's also a businessman turned farmer, similar to me. And the other is Kerry Takanaka from Takanaka Landscaping. So he was our green thumb. He had the nursery, the equipment, and on our...
See the relationship of the nursery and the aquaponics,
yes.
like who?
Like
Fred
Lau.
Yeah,
So you need a plan guy. Yes.
You start with one and you move on to the other.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're hedging your bets that way,
Well, again, remember the science of this started as fish just create a great source of fertilizer, right? So originally people didn't realize, hey, I could use it to grow food. I could just use it to grow up plants. And then the food connection began to occur. We also have a gentleman by the name of Kevin Izumi who helps advise us with regard to all things water and fish.
Great.
So as a businessman, you learn real quick to understand what you don't know, right? And I knew I could make the math and the numbers work, but I wasn't really sure
You're
about
good at putting
my
together
green thumb
team
and my
of
blue
experts.
thumb, in terms of...
I wanted to ask you about that, Jason. It's a science, of course. Liz would tell us that. And all the scientists would tell us that. But it's also an art, isn't it?
Oh, yes, yes.
And you have to sort of lick your finger, hold it up to the wind. What kind of a day are we having here? Are the fish going to be okay today? You have all these, factors that are maybe, I wouldn't say subjective, but maybe unpredictable in the way they work together.
Yeah.
And then a guy who really knows how to do this, he makes them work together, and it happens. But a guy who's just a little bit off, and they fail. So, can you make an industry out of that?
Yeah, I think for us, before we started the farm, we spent a while really studying the numbers, did the math work.
That's the investment bank.
And by understanding the thesis, right, then we just set out on a small scale. We started with what I call 6 troughs, which didn't involve a large amount of capital. I mean, it was still a lot. It was in the over $100,000, so it was
that's still
real money.
That's right,
but it wasn't. When you look at the aquaponics farms on the mainland, you're in the millions. So we started with that. That got us 6 troughs, a lot of fish, and we began to grow. Since that initial money, all of our expansion has been through our cash flow. So as 3 businessmen, we decided we're just going to grow through cash flow, and it will grow slower.
It's good discipline.
But it'll be good discipline. We'll get rid of the nice to have as opposed to the need to haves. And we've been able to grow now into probably one of the largest lettuce providers. And with our appetite of growth, we just keep doubling and doubling and doubling. And I guess as our schedule and customer demand allows, we'll keep doubling. Our big markets are really the supermarkets and the big distributors. So economies of scale for us is when a wholesaler picks up from us, it's over 1,000 pounds out the door one time, right? So one harvest crew in, get everything harvested fresh, right into the refrigerator, all the lettuce cooled down, and out and into your grocery store as fast as possible, fresh local produce for the population.
So you don't actually deliver a bag full of lettuce to a grocery store. You use a distributor.
We use a distributor. So that was the thing, is we decided we're becoming farmers to become food independent. We're not going to become delivery service, right? And
It's not simple.
This is an important decision.
Well, because I think if we wanted the green fame and glory, right? It's fun being connected into the restaurants and being part of the dinners and the galas and whatnot.
Yes.
And there's money in it because restaurants tend to pay more than the supermarkets. But it's also labor intensive. If I were
Yes.
going to deliver it, I now need a truck, I need
driver,
drivers,
yeah.
I need
Car
insurance
insurance,
with it.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
becomes a whole different game. And now I'm not managing a farm, I'm managing a garage as well.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. And so we kind of altered our mix to really be after a very large scale market. That being said, there's still a handful of very high-end restaurants around town that we service. And we
Directly.
through the distributors. Maybe we might drop it off ourselves if it's on the way home. But few and far in between. What's been happening is the larger restaurants have actually been sending their distributors to us
Right, right.
and saying, will you pick up from these guys? This is a high quality local product at reasonable prices. And what I like about aquaponics lettuce, aquaponics, and I guess I don't think it's been scientifically proven, but I've done it in my own refrigerator, so I'll say this is amateur science related. Aquaponic lettuce versus hydroponic lettuce versus in-ground lettuce, in my refrigerator, I will outlast the other two by over a week. So
Why is that?
Well, scientifically, I would guess because in aquaponics, the plants are surrounded by its nutrients and its water. It can spend time building its cell walls thicker, and so they don't decompose as fast. And for the
Right,
audience,
yeah, they last longer shelf life.
yeah, so for the audience, you can kind of see, this is the roots of an aquaponics plant growing straight in the water. It's kind of like a beard.
Yeah.
Now, how do you put that in? So there's a little there's
It was a small seed,
there's
right?
a kind of a shelf, and then holes in the shelf, and you put that little plastic container in the hole, and the roots drop in the water, and now you're growing from the water.
Yeah.
But what goes in there in the first place? Is it a little wee piece of lettuce?
Okay, so a lettuce seed, for the audience, is about the size of a pinhead. They're tiny.
Yeah.
When we originally started this farm, we would put one little lettuce seed into these orange pots. And in our pots, we don't use soil. It's all coconut husk, right? So a renewable, recyclable
In the bottom
material.
of that little pot.
Totally inert, right? So it's providing no nutrients. And our little lettuce seed would go in there. Inevitably, you're going to drop more than one. You're going to drop 2 or 3 in there because they're
yeah.
so small.
Yeah.
So then you have to spend your time in a couple days when they begin to sprout saying, oh, I don't have one lettuce growing, I have 4. And then you got to go and pick them all out. So it became very labor intensive
Right.
to seed lettuce this way. So what we decided to do was to take a handful of lettuce seeds, drop them in we'll call it a 2 feet by 1 foot tray, and grow them all up in one time. So we have thousands of little lettuce sprouts. And when they have one root, they're about 1 inch long and they have one root growing, we then transfer them into these pots. Okay, so when we seeded day 1, it was just a drop. Basically no labor cost. Because in running this business, labor is really what's going to eat up your profit margin, right, or add cost to your end product. So no labor to drop seeds into a container. All the labor then goes putting a 1-inch plant into a pot. Well, by doing it at that stage, I know I have 100% germination.
Right.
And my plant is not a little weak seed, not that seeds are weak.
Competing with other plants in the same pot.
But now I have a very strong 1-inch plant. I'm not dealing with an infant anymore, I'm dealing with a toddler.
So you figured this out yourself?
We did trial and error, we learned. We've probably had about 7 or 8 construction design changes. Just each time trying to find the same strength but a better way to build. A good example, so I said one of our partners is in the furniture business, and they have a lot of pallets. And on this island, right, we all live on an island, things keep getting shipped in, but very little gets shipped out. So we have a lot of pallets. In fact, there are businesses that basically go around to other businesses and get paid to remove pallets. So what we started doing was taking these pallets, putting them on cinder blocks, and putting a liner on top. And through that, we actually recycled the pallet or repurposed them. And we used that to grow our baby lettuces. Because a pallet with a liner on it is only about 1 inch deep. And you can see from the lettuce roots, they like to be about 8 inches.
Those roots came from the seed.
This root
You didn't have to do anything to
toddler
generate the
lettuce.
roots.
This entire plant came from that little sprout, well, the seed that sprouted into that 1 inch, 1 root seedling.
Little seeds do mighty plants
Yeah.
grow. Okay, let's take a break on that corny notion.
Maybe later you can tell people where they can buy your products.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason Brand, Kunia Country Farms in Kunia. We're talking about aquaponics comes to Kunia here on Agritech in Hawaii with me, Jay Fidell, and Liz Hsu. And we'll be right back after the short break to talk more about exactly how we get that kind of plant and how it differs from other, what do you call it, soil-based plants? In-ground.
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 Or
plant.
hydroponic.
Or hydroponic, yeah. We'll be right back.
Soil-based farming.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're ThinkTech Talks, talking about Agritech in Hawaii, and more specifically about how aquaponics is coming to Kunia in Kunia Country Farms with Jason Brand, the proprietor there, or one of the proprietors, and my co-host Liz Hsu and I are quizzing him about exactly how we did that, so you can learn how to do it too. Now, these are really nice-looking heads of lettuce. And I remember I talked to Kerry Kakazu. Remember him?
At the conference?
Yes, and he does hydroponics. We'll talk about how that compares. And he says, you know, if you put the plant in pure water, or water, not soil, you don't have to wash it. You can just take it straight from, you know, the shelf and eat it. And you don't have to worry about, is that true for these plants?
It's
You're not
general,
recommending that, though.
it's generally true. And I think what he's referring to is you don't have to wash off the dirt.
Right.
I think, and I won't speak for the Department of Ag or the Department of Health, but it is recommended that everyone out
wash
there
it,
washes
right.
their produce and vegetables.
Yes.
Sure, you never know.
Yeah, you
Yes.
never know. But to that end, by not having soil, we have less dirt to wash off.
Yes.
And the things that go in dirt.
And things that go in dirt, nematodes or other soil-borne illnesses or pests, we don't have.
Yeah.
And so that really, as a farmer, keeps your maintenance and your labor down and produces, in my opinion, a healthier product.
So this comes out of the rack, so to speak, and you take off the little potted plant affair and pull it right out and put it in a bag, or do you leave it just like this?
No, so we've been asked to do what they call living lettuce, in which case we would actually put this in the bag.
The whole thing with the roots
Oh,
and
so
everything.
the wholesaler will cut it.
Well, no, they want the grocery stores sometimes. If you go there, you'll actually see hydroponic roots on lettuce. They call it living lettuce.
Oh,
What I've read about
It
it,
lasts longer. if
what
it
I've
has
read
the
about
roots.
it is it's a myth. It doesn't last any longer with the roots. And so therefore we don't do
Looks
it.
like it lasts longer. That's
The reason we don't do it, it's just another thing that could tangle up the food safety process.
yes, yes.
Meaning now I have
That's
more
right.
things that are not edible in the packaging that ultimately the
have to be
consumer is gonna take.
inspected, whatnot.
So we made the decision on our farm not to do it, to cut the roots off. Now, when we harvest at our farm, and everything's designed that similar to a river in the sense of there's a current. Our tanks are up at the highest spot on our farm. Gravity is pulling that water down, so I don't have to use power, through these grow beds. And all the grow beds are angled or basically facing our processing area, or what I call our rinse area. So we will lift a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of styrofoam. And we get our styrofoam basically from the islands, made here, so that we don't have to fly in things or import things not made here. And they're made custom designed to the exact dimensions that we want for our net pots.
Which you have designed.
Which we designed in order to maximize the air gap between our roots and the water.
You don't want air going down alongside the plant into water.
We want a little air
yeah.
between the roots and the water. The big roots are going all the way
not
down
alongside
into the water.
plant.
Not alongside the plant, but a small gap so that there is, let's call it some form of respiration that is occurring at the plant roots. If they were fully submerged, the plant will still grow, no problem. But by providing a little bit of oxygen, we found two things happened. One, our plants grew about 15% faster.
That's amazing.
So we got a quicker yield.
What's the time it takes to grow one of these?
In the summertime, from seedling to harvest, will be between 5 and 6 weeks. Now I say summertime because that's going to be the longest day. In the wintertime, that will extend by about 2 weeks, so between 7 and 8 weeks. So as a farmer, you have to manage that ever increasing or decreasing daylight to make sure that you can deliver to your clients.
Constantly.
Constantly.
Yes.
Because our first year, we weren't aware of I guess we're aware, but we didn't really experience it. And so all of a sudden, we're like, what happened? We're out of lettuce, right? And
This wasn't growing fast enough.
it wasn't growing fast enough. Everything looked right. It was growing.
Suppose you put lights on top.
That would work.
But to pay for electricity.
But now you got to pay for electricity. And if you were going to do it in the mainland, in a cold weather place, I would build a greenhouse with lights and do it there. And that would be the way to do it locally. In Hawaii, we have beautiful sunshine. We have plenty
So you
of
leave
daylight.
these exposed.
So we leave these exposed.
Suppose it rains a lot. Suppose it's really hot. Suppose there's a storm.
So what we do is we put what we'll call shade cloth and bird netting over our troughs, our grow area. It lets, depending on the type we use, it blocks out about 30% of the sunlight all the way to 60% of the sunlight. And you'll use a different one based on the time of year. So one, they're keeping birds out. Two, they're preventing the lettuce from having tip burn. Okay, so basically getting sunburn or too hot.
Yeah.
And so that's what we'll use to kind of control our daylight. But there's plenty of sunshine here. There's no energy involved in using lights, so there's no reason to do lights. That being said, if we were going to switch crops to like strawberries, we would probably go in a greenhouse. I probably still wouldn't have lights, but I would be much more protective or conscious about insects that might want to be eating my strawberries versus insects that want to eat lettuce.
But I get what that tells me is that you're fully capable in thinking ahead to the day when you're going to add more crops to your offerings.
Well, so that's how we'll grow. Right now, from the business side of the farm, we will continue to expand as long as we feel we're not decreasing our quality. Up until the point of, truthfully, we have edged out every imported lettuce on this island. Now, the only lettuce that we can't grow really on Oahu is the iceberg family.
Because?
It's too hot here. But we can pretty much grow anything from romaine to the endive to the oak leaves to the olorosas to the manoas. Everything else grows very well in Hawaii. Our elevation is about 850 feet above sea level, so we have nice trade winds. All of our water is covered.
This is all in 3 years.
Yeah, all in 3 years. All of our water is covered, so the other thing is, while it might be hot in the air temperature, we're cold underneath, right? Because the water temperature is around 70, 72 degrees.
What about the possibility, because Liz and I have talked about this in the past, what about the possibility of making a kind of unit, okay, and putting it in 500 square feet in the back of a given restaurant, and then you go and service it as and when necessary, or they can harvest it if you show them how, and it just sits there in the back of the restaurant producing like that. Do you see a time when that will happen, or are you going to keep it on the farm?
Well, I think what we'll call mini commercial scale gardens for restaurants, it already exists, and they're popular. I don't think they're economical, right? So I think if it wasn't
Economies of scale.
yeah. So that restaurateur is basically saying, I have all my produce grown on site and it's fresh and it's ready in demand, and for that I'm going to charge a premium, and probably rightfully so
Right.
deserve a premium because he's a
Yes.
high quality product to his customers or her customers, and that makes sense from that standpoint. From a provider of food standpoint, it makes no sense. Right? You need to do things in large scale, focused,
Yeah.
and really be able to
Yeah.
be a low-cost
You
provider.
can't really focus if you got installations all over town.
You can't
If
focus.
one goes off the mark, and another one goes off the mark in a different way, you're chasing your tail all over town.
And you could end up, if you played it out to its extreme, if everybody had their own garden and, the cabbage moth came and wiped out 2 farmers or 2 restaurateurs' gardens, he has nowhere to buy produce, right? Because everyone had their own garden size just for their
Right.
restaurants.
Nobody is
No one
working
had
at scale.
Right. So if you play, if everyone went backyard, then nobody, there can be no room for mistake.
Let's take one last break, and then we'll come back and talk about Ocoleow. Or rum, as the case may be. We're not kidding, Liz.
All right.
Serious.
Okay.
That's Jason Brand, Kunia Country Farms, and we're talking about Agritech in Hawaii on the Agritech in Hawaii show every Monday at 4 p.m. And we're talking about how aquaponics has come to Kunia, except when we come back from the break, we're going to talk just a little about rum. It'll be interesting. You need to hear this. We'll be right back. I'm Jay Fidell. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us. Come
Okay,
join
it's
us.
every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every
Energy
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii.
Energy
we'll see you
Wednesday.
there. Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here on ThinkTech Talks, talking about Agritech in Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell, Liz Shue down the other end of the table, and in the middle, Jason Brand of Kunia Country Farms. So we talked about lettuce and we talked about tilapia and other fish, but let's talk about a little side thing you're doing, which really interests me, and that's rum. Rum, there's great history in the world about rum, and until you told me, I didn't realize that rum is a direct product of sugarcane. And we actually know how to do that here. So what are you doing on sugarcane and rum?
Sure. This is a business that I guess is under the brand name of Monolele Distillers. And our product name will be Kohana Rum. Ko is the Hawaiian word for sugar, hana work. So the work of sugarcane is basically to make rum. What we've done is, over the last almost 4 years now, collected the world's largest botanical collection of native Hawaiian sugarcane. So these were the original canoe plants brought over by the Polynesians about 1,000 years ago, and lost to history, because as the big 5 sugar companies grew up in Hawaii, they didn't want the chewing canes that the original Hawaiians had. They wanted sucrose canes, or canes that made high sugar content. And so they got rid of all the native stuff and basically brought in hybrid canes. So we had to spend a lot of time trekking through fields looking for these original plants and then propagating them to get enough to be a commercial size. So we've we got our Class 1 manufacturing license and began on Oahu in Kunia, right next to the lettuce farm. So for those of you who want to come out, you can have a rum-soaked tilapia wrapped in a lettuce leaf on the farm. Well, that's the dream. It'll be there soon. But with these native Hawaiian canes began to make very high-end rum. Now, most rum in the world really is made with molasses. And for those that know anything about molasses is industrial waste. It's the byproduct of making sugar, your table sugar. And you burn it and you get a sticky, ooey, gooey thing. And that's what is used to make rum. And when you drink rum, you generally mix it with fruit juice because it doesn't taste very good. Right? It's very grainy, very high alcohol content, or just harsh on the taste buds. So what we do is what they call rum agricole. Okay, the original French style of rum. Very popular in
Agricole, that stands for agriculture. Right?
Agriculture. So it's they spell the rum RHUM in a very French way, agricole. Which
they always do things different.
Can you believe? Yeah. So we do it in that style, and instead of using molasses as a base, we go right from hand crushed sugarcane to sugarcane juice, right into the fermentation tanks, and then eventually making rum.
No molasses.
No molasses, and because of that, it's much smoother. And I like to think about this product almost as it's the last rum is the last white spirit to have undergone its renaissance. And what do I mean by that? If you think about growing up, we might have drank one of the lower end tequilas, and tequila tasted like, oh, that was tequila, until Patron came along, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a very smooth tequila. I could drink it, I could even sip it, right? Or Don Julio. The same thing occurred in vodka. When we were growing up, Smirnoff was a much lower quality product. It was very fiery. And then Grey Goose and Absolute and Chopin came along. It's very smooth. Whiskeys went under that same, I'll call renaissance, as did gin. But no one's tackled rum. And so by going to this higher end, hand-crushed, hand-pressed juice, with this nice backstory of a revival of the original canoe plants. And interesting enough, 5 of these sugar canes, these Hawaiian sugar canes, were used in a love ceremony called Hana Aloha. So the underlying...
In the Hawaiian culture.
In the Hawaiian culture. So the underlying story of this really is a whole love Hawaiian connection to and then this rum. So the hope is people
this
come...
is a great story.
People come to this distillery and they can taste the rum. There'll also be locally grown coffee, locally grown chocolates, things that go well with rum. We're hoping eventually to have a farm-to-table restaurant there for people to stop. And then you'll be able to overlook and see these lettuce farm and exactly where your salad came from that day. And then take maybe a hay ride, or what we call the rum wagon ride, down into the sugarcane fields and actually get a taste the different types of sugarcane.
What a great idea. It's like the Dole Pineapple Pavilion, it's the same idea. Come out and see us while we are engaged in our agriculture.
Yeah.
The tourists would love it. I think local people too.
Yeah.
And if you had lunch, I'd be there in a flash with my lunch and my rum and everything. So it's a salad lunch with maybe a rum dressing.
Right. Are you going to have a restaurant nearby your farm?
It's everything's in some form of either planning or permitting. For the various stages of the business.
Oh, fabulous.
So the thing that's really up and running right now is the distillery. And the landscaping and the painting are all going on in what we'll call our tasting room retail showroom.
We really need to go see his
We do.
operations. Yeah.
We do. I'd like to come out there and do an OC16 show with you.
Well, come out. It's in Kunia, and it's actually in the original or old Del Monte General Store. So this is when Del Monte was here. They had a general store that basically serviced their plantation village in Kunia. And that's what we've taken over and built a side business, a building next to. And again, it's a giant agricultural revival. We chose Del Monte green and white to kind of give a kickback or a nod to the days of the Del Monte and the plantation there. And we just hope to make a very pretty, interesting story about sugarcane, aquaponics, everything sustainable.
You've really moved light years in 3 years. It's really phenomenal. And great guest, Liz. Thank you very much. Excellent, fabulous. One more question, though. And then we're going to have a summary.
All right.
The question I put to you is, where is this all going in a larger sense? I mean, it sounds to me like you're doing great, And it sounds to me like if people, see what you're doing, it's going to encourage them to do similar things. And before you know it, we'll have what Liz and I both dream about all the time. We'll have an aquaponics industry here. We'll be able to satisfy the local market, and we didn't talk about this yet, but conceivably an export market, conceivably. So the question is, where do you think it's going? Where does it fit, in your view of the future for Hawaii?
I think the technology, while simple technology, will become one of the most important agricultural technologies in the world. And if you think about all the time you hear about California drought, Midwest drought, Australian drought, right? The common theme that's missing there is water.
That's right.
Right. And as I said in the beginning, right, we filled up 3 years ago and that was it. Right. So the one element honestly, which is our enemy, 3 days of rain is actually my enemy. Whereas most farmers are praying for rain, right? And the reason it's an enemy for me is that's how long it generally takes to overflow my system, in which case I dilute my nutrients.
You lose your nutrients, they just slosh over the side.
And so it's not the end of the world, it's just I dilute my nutrients. And also the lettuce never gets to dry out. And so sometimes you'll get a decaying where the leaf meets the stem, like a water rot kind of thing. So long-term rain is bad for aquaponics, but as the world is going, or the United States and frankly the world, with droughts, this becomes very important, right?
Yes.
So we really can be soil neutral, water neutral, and power neutral. You have a very important scalable type of farming.
That's right.
That becomes, I think, a way forward, maybe not the way forward, but a way forward for the world. And so Hawaii has definitely embraced it, I think. The Department of Ag, Hawaii, and basically everyone local on the island has really picked it up, and Hawaii is very popular with aquaponics. We hope just to keep proving it can be very commercial.
So if I wanted to get some Kunia Farms lettuce, where would I go?
Sure. So Kunia Country Farms lettuce is found in pretty much every Foodland store. It's in Don Quixote. It's in the commissary. We're at some of the high-end restaurants like BLT Steak, 12th Avenue Grill, Salt, Cocina, and various places around town. But the real place for us is find us in the supermarket. And if it's not there, ask the manager to tell them to go send you to Kunia Country Farms.
Yeah, just to make it clear, this is the label. Let me get this right here. Yeah. Upside down, backward, what? Okay, there's the label.
Kunia Country
That's what you
Farms.
can see. I just dropped it all over me.
Yeah, see how beautiful this
Okay,
lettuce is.
we're running out of time. I just want to ask Liz to summarize what's been covered here today, and then we'll close the show. Liz?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. We are with Jason Brand from Kunia Country Farms. He's an investment banker turned farmer, and he shared with us how he started his farm, how he troubleshooted the problems he experienced, and the other techniques that he made the operation successful, the economics of operating an aquaponics farm. So thank you so much for being with us here today. I think newcomers to aquaponics industry will learn a lot from you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jason. That's Jason Brand, Kunia Country Farms, here on Agritech in Hawaii. Aquaponics comes to Kunia. Thanks so much.
Great.
Aloha.
Thank
Aloha.
you.